This is my 70-year-old detached garage, and much like a hormonal teenager, it's been through many phases over its life. Today, it has a better idea of what it wants to do with its life, so hopefully we can develop that frontal lobe just a little bit more. And we're going to do it on a total budget with the help of Amazon, Facebook Marketplace, and maybe a little bit of the Home Depot. And no, none of those companies are sponsoring us. So I may or may not have developed a small problem with Facebook Marketplace. See, over the past year of homeownership, this garage has become a museum of slightly used but too good of a deal to pass up finds on Facebook Marketplace. From things like cabinets, sanders, shelves, welding tables, you name it, we probably got it on Facebook Marketplace. Now, of course, I couldn't outfit the entire garage with Facebook Marketplace, so I did my best to find something cheap on Amazon or possibly get a hand-me-down from some of the people that I know. Don't worry, at the end of this video, I'll tally everything up that I can and explain to you honestly what was a hand-me-down, what was Marketplace, and what I had to bite the bullet on to buy brand new. Now, I understand I owe you guys some credibility to make sure that you know I'm a Marketplace aficionado, so check out this Bing edit and I'll show you a couple of the things that I got off Marketplace for what I think is a steal. When I first started with this 7-year-old garage, the floors were basically falling apart, there was zero storage, and the whole place felt like it was one big episode of That 70s Show. So I went a little overboard. I built a completely custom attic, which required completely relocating the electric. I built a workbench that could probably hold a car, and honestly, it's about as strong as a Snap-on toolbox. Why? Because I used a ridiculous amount of 4x4s, and don't ask me any more questions, alright? I just think 4x4s are really cool. Is there anybody else who agrees with me on that? They just look good. Anyways, I gave this place an overpriced two-tone paint job, built some custom ceiling shelves, and got everything I could off the floor. And that's because this garage comes in at a width of 17 feet. And I want to store 2 cars here and be able to use this as a workspace for metal fabrication and automotive stuff. So I had my work cut out for me. So I said that I reinvented my garage with Facebook Marketplace, and mostly I mean the storage. So let's talk cabinets and storage first. I got a set of these extreme garage cabinets as a whole thing and handed down a couple of them to a friend. So we're going to call these two a $35 purchase. Now, if you haven't been able to tell, I have a hunkering for vintage automotive cabinets in the metal kind. And yes, all 3 of them are from Facebook Marketplace. Let's start with the Atlas cabinets. I got this white and blue Atlas cabinet for $60. I got this black Atlas fuel and ignition cabinet for $40. And my favorite cabinets, I got these vintage AC Delco GM cabinets for $125 as a set. I offered $25 and a McChicken for this welding cart, and the guy accepted it without the McChicken, so that's a win. I got a hold of this black metal shelf for $20 a piece. The other 2 are in my shed, so we'll call that $20. With Marketplace storage out of the way, let's talk a couple of the tools that I got a hold of. We got this welding table for $125, and it's brand new and unused, and it came with all the fixtures, still new in bag, so that's pretty cool. I got a hold of this Wilton miter saw for only $40. Nailed down this Buck Tool professional sander for $90, which I think is a steal. I got this O'Reilly banner for only $5 on Marketplace. I got a hold of this Vizio Smart TV for only $40. It was right down the street, so that's pretty cool. Don't mind the S10 because the first 5.3 that ever went into it, the transmission and the bell housing adapter kit are all for Marketplace. With Marketplace out of the way, let's talk about hand-me-downs and secondhand purchases through people I know. Starting with the best one of all, this AHP 203XI TIG welder that I got from John at Crapbox Cars in Florida, and I had to buy a suitcase to ship it back from Florida to Illinois, but it was still worth the $300 purchase price. John, if you're watching from Crapbox Cars, man, thank you so much. That's a shop upgrade. And also, check out Crapbox Cars on YouTube. They've got some pretty good content and a mean Toyota Corolla with a twin-turbo Windsor motor in it. Now let's talk hand-me-downs. I got these jack stands from my uncle's basement. I got these shelves right here from a friend, and my girlfriend's dad hooked me up with all these DeWalt 18-volt tools. They're a little outdated, but man, I built my entire garage with them, and that was a huge upgrade for me, including the saw. So thank you, sir, for that. Now, I know it wasn't crazy, and maybe it was a little clickbaity by the thumbnail, but let's also talk about the stuff that I had to buy brand new, like this Amazon tool cart that holds your hanging tools. And we'll talk about the maybe $700 that I spent in painting this place and $400 that I spent refurbishing the floors. And as an honorable mention, it was about $700 to build the custom attic up there. Now this list is just going to include everything I can remember for this garage related to storage, tools, or Facebook Marketplace. And I'm not going to put all of my tools in here, just the ones that I feel are part of the garage. And our Marketplace finds came out to $570. Our department store and new purchase raw materials came out to $2,050, and honestly, the workbench and paint were just unnecessary costs because I like going overboard. You could almost cut that $2,050 in half if you just don't have OCD. The Amazon and miscellaneous costs came out to just around $400, so all in all, to get this garage where it is today, it cost me about $3,000, and I'm not sure what you guys think, but that is a lot of money. My garage was in pretty rough shape, and I had to build an attic, so those could be some ins and outs that you probably don't have to deal with. Now, if you have a keen eye, you're going to notice some of the upgrades already, but the real challenge that we're facing is getting a welding table and a belt sander in here because we've got some changing necessities from this garage. And we're looking to get some additional organization in here too without turning this place into an episode of Hoarders, and it's headed that way right now. Now, this is tough to do being born and raised in the Midwest, but we're going to have to sacrifice the garage fridge for the greater good of fabrication. We're trying to get this as organized as we can, and even though my fellow Midwesterners are going to look down on me for this, it had to be done. Now we've got a clean slate to start with. Check it out. It was right around this point where I got the brilliant idea to exploit the labor of some of my friends by inviting them over to my house for smash burgers and the UFC fights, only to surprise them with a very heavy shelf that just needed to be moved. And you can see our man Jake has the right idea here. The plan is to empty this shelf, move it into the corner of the garage, shift over the workbench and the toolbox, and that should create the space we need for the welding table. And yes, of course, that welding table was located on nothing but the latest and greatest Facebook Marketplace finds. And I'm not sure who your friends are, but when I pull this type of stuff, or pretty much when I do anything, there's always going to be some abuse. And here's a beautiful example of that.
It was nice seeing you guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Your two other passengers are inside.
Too bad they're swinging. That's unfortunate for them.
Andrew, you're on the road. Alright, thanks, Phil. Little Jake's lower to the ground. We can get underneath that thing. Yeah, see, he's a lot lower to the ground than I am.
With the entire contents of the shelf being laid out on the garage floor, the while you're in there's of reorganizing the cabinet system was starting to creep up on me, but first, let's go ahead and finish what we originally started, and then we'll get to the while you're in there's.
Many hours later.
With tallying up the garage out of the way, why don't we get back to exploiting my family members and continue the organization and a couple while you're in theirs as well. The first step to getting this done is stealing labor from your friends and family. This is my dad. And today we're going to be exploiting his labor. My parents were in town and I capitalized. My wonderful mother made Italian beef sandwiches and my detail-oriented father was trapped helping me organize my cabinet systems that looked like a bomb went off inside of them. My dollies were completely full from when I commandeered my friend's labor earlier in the video, and believe it or not, after some Blackstone smash burgers, we weren't really up to the task of reorganizing the cabinets.
Give me that little red scrub brush.
So we tackled that first, and man, I found so many things that I thought got lost in the move and the revamp of this garage, and we probably spent 5 to 6 hours organizing this, and I have a ton of unused time-lapse footage, and I'm getting bored watching it while editing, so I'm going to spare you of that and give you the cliff notes. We got everything separated, the special auto tools, paint and body stuff, detail stuff, and the things along those lines. Everything was scattered about the attic and the cabinets lazily, and most things finally have a home. Check this out.
The next day.
So about those hand-me-downs, I mentioned the shelf I got for free earlier. Well, of course, free is never exactly how you want it to be at first, and with a little effort and a 40-minute round trip to Menards, we can change that. After moving our big shelf, of course, we damaged some of the paint, so I had to get that sanded down nice and smooth, get rid of all the peeling spots, so we could get everything to grease with some glass cleaner, and you guessed it, I'm touching up this wall because I've got OCD. I was having a tough time deciding how I wanted to cut this plywood as well because we only had one stud to mount this to. One of the reasons I'm not too crazy about this 1/4-inch paneling that the previous owners installed as the wall backing. I went ahead and I got this cut to size because we're going to be adding some hand-me-down shelves, and I'm going to be making them sort of fit in this open space right here. It's a 2-foot by 4-foot section of plywood, and the space is 26 inches wide. So I opted to keep the factory edge at 24 inches and cut it to the 26 inches of length that fit properly right here. Now it's time for one of the more unfortunate parts, and it's painting. And honestly, I really do not like painting, but there's no way that I'm going to go through all this work to paint this entire garage and then not paint match this. So let's get after it. Of course, with the paint out, I did some touch up on the back wall because I couldn't help myself, and I got to fastening our shelves mounting surface to the wall because I was torn about how many screws I was going to use, being that this is only going into one stud. I ended up going with about 5 or 6 2.5-inch construction screws right down the middle. Unfortunately, I did forget to say that ain't going anywhere, so who knows? At this point, the whole garage could collapse. Now, to make this look nice, we're going to have to do some modifications to the rails and the shelves themselves so it won't have that DruBuilt look that I'm going for. Oof, that was a little cringy to say out loud. Let's breeze over it. We also had to chop down the shelves, which was right around the time that my camera died, but that's okay because you've already seen this completed shelf if you've been paying attention. Basically, all I did was chop the rails and the shelves down to fit the space exactly, including dodging the actual electrical outlet there, and it came out pretty good. So yeah, let's breeze on to the other while you're in there, the belt sander. I wanted to make this entire stand out of scrap metal, so I went up to the attic and grabbed what I thought would work well, like some of this 2x6 metal rectangular tube that I have. And looking at the price of metal today, holy moly, this is a pricey belt sander stand. Funny enough, I got this metal rectangular tubing off of Facebook Marketplace, so there's a bonus for title and thumbnail credibility. Did you hear that, algorithm? I pulled down the chop saw and got it squared away so I could do my best to get the straightest cut possible, which I still failed at, and sliced her down to what I thought was a good height. I ended up chopping it another 2 inches off camera. I really need to invest in a bandsaw and a drill press here eventually, and of course some new electric because we keep popping that breaker with the Tig Welder and the chop saw. Anyways, I'm not sure about this location still, but you can see here I was mapping things out and conducting inner self arguments from location to height and everything in between, and I decided to move my glove holder and tuck this closer to the toolbox, and of course, receive some more motivation from the homies. Comically enough, I ended up using the belt sander a whole lot to actually build the belt sander stand. Yeah, you heard that right. This is exactly why you need one of these in your shop. It's practically a universal law of fabrication. Now, as you can see, it didn't work out great because any pressure I applied just started to move the sander. It was deeply ironic, and it took me an extra hour of my life I'll never get back. But hey, it proves the concept, right? Proof I can make anything harder than it needs to be without spending a dime I didn't have to. Plus, my pride is free, and I can always make more of it. Or lose it, however that saying goes. Personally, I know a solid 3/16 inch thick plate would be the right and almost affordable way to mount this, but let's be real, I'm cheap and committed to building this strictly from what's hiding in the attic. I'm also not sure if this is the final design, plus my brain resists forward planning, and I've been needing an excuse to TIG weld something. It just so happened that this stand was the job that ended up in the crosshairs to be wildly overcomplicated for a simple YouTube video. So I fired up my high-tech CAD just to get an idea of the shape. Now it's time to cook up some questionable engineering.
Trying to figure out how to cut this piece of metal. Look at all the f***ups I did over there.
After what seemed to be a total brain fart, I finally defaulted to a poorly translated time-lapse on YouTube Shorts that spoke to my very smooth brain. And I figured out why I was cutting the angle iron incorrectly each time. Shocking discovery, but it was just a very simple marking error that I kept making. I got the 2 side plates cut out, and once again used a makeshift mounted belt sander to complete this job, irony at it again, and started using my new-to-me welding table to get the first edges or ears or side plates made out to the width of the sander. Now you can see the minimalistic idea that I have in my head that might just allow me to skip using any plate on this job altogether. With a quick trip to the DruBuilt parts store, also known as my attic, I found some 1/8" strap left over from the Ford Dentside C-notch project that would work perfect for this. If you guys haven't seen that video, go check it out on the channel. But anyways, I got it measured out to fit the middle to my best abilities, and I got a little fanboy energy going on in the process.
Be like old Puddin's Fab Shop, mark it, cut it.
After cutting and fitting, it's time to clean. That's the name of the game with TIG welding. The prep is everything. We start with a roll-lock disc, end with a wipe of alcohol, double check our fit up, and get the torch ripping. With this minimalist design, I wanted some support on the sides to tie everything into the rectangular tubing, so I bent up some plates in the vise and put one on the driver and passenger side of this belt sander stand. Originally, I wanted to bolt them in because I wasn't certain that this was the final design, but I was able to shake it more than twice, and that's considered playing with it. So we got everything welded in later on in the video, but right now, you can see the general concept coming together here. With my angle iron leg concept in the works, I got to cutting the other 3. Funny enough, here I am using the belt sander again, this time in an insanely flammable fashion. If you guys can see what I'm talking about, let me know what you think an OSHA rep would say down in the comments. Plus, right after this, I sliced my hand with the angle iron because I got those 45 sharp on the belt sander. I'm glad I was able to get some TIG practice in, apart from the fact that I kept blowing the circuit in my garage because the washing machine was going. When that circuit blows, the post flow goes too, and the TIG welder no longer works. So there are some obvious spots that show a lack of gas coverage on this stainless steel welding wire. Nonetheless, we TIG everything out and finish this project up. I'm honestly not too sure how I feel about it, and I'm not certain it will be permanent, so I just went with some small Tapcons right now to fasten it. And as a super cool surprise addition, my dad was getting rid of his Heo soundbar that's almost 10 years old and the Bluetooth doesn't work. But I got it fired up through Wi-Fi on Spotify, and you know what they say, good sound equipment just doesn't age. The hooks on the back didn't line up with the studs, so I had to chop and paint match a 2x4 to get everything to sit nice, and I sent a Snapchat to my sound system buddy, and he was giving me grief about the wire management. But little did he know, I was still working on that, so I got a little fired up and sent him this.
Come on now. Look at that, dog. Slick in there. What 2x4? Gotta let DruBuilt cook. Boy, I can't see a wire for shit, son.
So that's going to conclude phase 2 of the garage, and the only thing left to do now is to show you guys what we got. So let's move some cars around and take a peek at what we got. that's everything I got. And if you stayed up to this point, I appreciate you and thank you for watching. If you're interested in any DruBuilt merch to support the channel, go ahead and check out drewbuilt.printful.me. So let me know in the comments what I did wrong, what you think I should change, anything along those lines. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.